Work for the Public Affairs Office. I'm a Public Affairs Specialist. Here with me today, I have Joseph Tritz. He's the Maintenance and Operations Supervisor. To the left of him, I have Francisco Martinez. He's the Assistant Area Operations Manager. To the left of him, I have Commissioner MariaElena, and to the left, or to the right of her, Delbert Humberson, Hydrologist. Today, they're going to share some information with you. I'm going to ask a few things. If anybody's giving public comment, please don't give your address. There's been some issues with that. So if you could not do that, or if you can't do that, please don't do that.
Your physical address.
Your physical address, yes. Email address we want. Physical address, yes, we don't want it. If you haven't signed in, please sign in. That justifies a lot for us. So there's a QR code out front. There's also a sign-in sheet. If you guys could, please sign that legibly. I'd appreciate that. Without further ado, Mr. Anthony Stambach, if you could go ahead and
take it away, huh?
Yeah, take it away.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anthony Stambach. I'm the General Manager with the Dogville County Irrigation District number 2. I think we'll get started by introducing the other board members. So pass to you.
My name is Michael Kent, General Manager for Delbert Irrigation District.
Troy Allen, General Manager for Delta Lake Irrigation. Robert Sines, Absolute Consultant.
I'm Jim Brown, Chairman, Region and Water Planning.
Melissa Gonzalez with the Rio Grande Valley Development Council. Bill with LNG Engineering representing Melissa County.
All right. And I guess next up, if we want to take a minute to introduce ourselves from around the room so we're familiar with who's all here. I guess I'm looking this way, so do you mind starting off?
Santiago Caicedo report here.
Thank you.
Historical Commission.
Jason Labos and.
All right. Well, yeah, I'm supposed to get on a webinar.
Daniel Gonzalez, Cedar Property.
Elijah Goff, Texas General Land Office.
Arthur Zeniga with Baskin Limited, Moreno.
Michael Reyes, Ecological Services, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service,
Jack Cano with the LRGBC.
Georgina Mayor, TCQ, Rio Grande Watermaster.
Arturo Cabello, Brownsville Irrigation District. Greg Harmon, Cameron County Irrigation District number 2 and Cameron County Drainage District number 3 and 7.
Ruben Saldana, wearing 2 hats, Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service and City Savings.
I'm Paul Ross, I'm the A&M AgriLife Extension Service College Station.
My name is Ruben Oviedo, I'm the District Director for Congresswoman Monica de la Cruz, I think Texas 15.
My name is Rene Perez, I'm with TCQ, Border Affairs, Region 15.
Colin McDonald, the Texas Water Foundation.
Okay, I'm still in the Texas Western National Program. These 2 hours count as a class training.
And just Francisco, do we have a moderator? Are you moderating the online course by chance or no?
I can't, or if you want to take it.
Okay, well, I was just going to say, also wanted to extend a warm welcome to the folks that are joining us on virtual land. I don't see who's all here, but possibly to keep us on track, we'll just move on to the next.
Okay, if there's questions, I'll pop.
Yeah, I do see we have 55 folks online, so thanks for joining us. I guess without further ado, if you are online, just please try to do the little raise hand function that Microsoft Teams has so we can see that you have a question. But without further ado, I guess we'll go on to our first item, which is the update on the hydrology.
Thank you, Anthony, for that. Teeing us up. Okay, so we're here today because when I first became IBWC commissioner, I was at my first public meeting in Amistad, and I had a question from a very prominent irrigator in the region that all of you know, Senor Hinojosa. He gets up in the public meeting and he turns to me and he says, "We're always talking about Mexico's deliveries. We really want to understand what's happening with US deliveries." And so I was a little puzzled at that time. And so I started doing some research on what is the deliveries, what is happening in the region. And the only thing I found was a study that was done in 2013, funded by Department of Interior Bureau of Reclamation on the region. The Rio Grande Valley Water Authority, I think existed at that time, was the sponsor. And it published, one of the findings in there was that this region was severely vulnerable because of its high dependence in the Rio Grande, right? And so right now, this presentation that we're gonna give is rather timely because Region M, I can put the audience. Region M right now is doing their state water plan. And so we have, tomorrow, they have a public meeting. We will be presenting this information there. We have already presented some of this information in the public, in some other public meetings. But I think it's really incumbent for stakeholders to kind of understand what's happening in the basin. Now, what I've seen on the Colorado River is they have their basin, the Colorado River in California, Arizona, all the way up to Wyoming. What I've seen in their analysis is that they have a real good understanding of their basin. They have a really good understanding of building coalitions. And because of that, you know, the Inflation Reduction Act funding was approved for funding to help them to deal with drought. This region is probably experiencing something very similar, and that's what we wanted to show today. Now, I want to be clear that it's, even though we are presenting this information, this is not a hydrology study. This is just presenting data that we are responsible for gathering and to determine ownership of water in the river. So we have all of these hydrologists, hydrotechs, as well as meter gauging stations that Delbert would talk about with regards to that measures water. And so what we want to do is share that with you today so that you can kind of see what is happening in the basin. But this does not take away from my focus of water deliveries from Mexico. I'll be talking a little bit about that as well, because it is a priority for us. And I'll be talking about the engagement from other federal officials on this discussion. So Delbert, you know, you want to come up? And so it's going to be a little bit of a joint presentation between me and I. Mostly him if you don't like the data.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. So first off, I'd like to thank everybody for taking time out of your day and spend it with us as we share this information with you. Before I jump into it, I do want to emphasize that the work I'm presenting was actually done by my coworker, friend, and our lead hydrologist, Adrian Cortez. I have played a supporting role in this, so I'm knowledgeable on what we're talking about today, but I don't want to take away from it. So this is his work. So let's talk a little bit about the hydrology. And what we want to do is kind of walk you through, where does our data come from? Some of you probably know, some of you may not know. IBWC has had a stream gauging program since the 1930s. Some of our gauges actually have records older than that. That started in the late 1800s. The official agency program started in the 30s, and we use that data to do our accounting. Binational accounting was introduced in the 50s after the 44 Water Treaty. And that's what we use, this accounting process, to determine how much water belongs to each country in Amistad and Falcon. And through that accounting process, here which button to hit. Right there, we also track river evaporative processes. I point that out because that's a key part of the analysis that was done today. What you see here is a map. That's from our water data portal online. On there, all those circles represent a stream gauge where you can get data that we put on there. Some of it is ours, some of it is from other agencies, but it's a convenient place to get all the data. If you look here, we have some that are in blue. Those blue ones represent accounting gauges. So those are the gauges that we run, we do the records for, and we use that to calculate ownership of water entering the Rio Grande. We have some yellow gauges, those are ours too. Those are for flood monitoring. And you notice some red ones. These are external IBWC, we pull them in. So going up the Conchos, for example, a lot of that's Canagua. The United States might be USGS or Bureau of Reclamation. But this water portal is a one-stop shop for you to find a bunch of data on the Rio Grande. So using that data, we're seeking to answer the question, where's our water from? Well, if you're familiar with the treaty, then you know this answer already. But if not, I'll spell it out for you. If we're looking at Amistad Reservoir, the inflows in the Amistad that belong to the United States, as dictated by the treaty, include 1/3 of the Rio Conchos, right? That comes in from Mexico. Unless Minute 234 is in effect, That's a special agreement between the countries that lets us get more than 1/3 in the event that there's a 5-year cycle that ends in a debt. You can imagine the second 5-year cycle after that, it's hard to pay back that debt and meet that cycle's demands at just 1/3, right? So minute 234 gets activated and we might get up to 100%, which is what happened in 2020. We were getting 100% of all the 6 tributaries that are named in Mexico. The other places we get water, Terlingua and Alamito Creeks. Those are, if you look here, we got Big Bend region, Alamito and Terlingua are right here, kind of between Presidio and Big Bend. That's 100% United States water. Also belonging to the United States are the Pecos and Devils. So if you can see, am I standing your way? Can you guys see? Not there.
Okay, we're familiar with it.
All right. So Homicide Reservoir, Homicide Reservoir is right here in the map. And the Pecos and Devils flow pretty much straight into the reservoir. They're also 100% United States water. Also, Good Enough Springs is named in the treaty. You may or may not have heard of Good Enough Springs. If you have heard of it or haven't heard of it, it's been inundated by the lake now. Right, we made the lake, it covered it, but we have a process in place to make sure we're still getting that water, because even though the lake covered it, that's still water coming in, and that is the United States water. Now that's all the stuff that's measured. We also have water that shows up. You can imagine there's a lot of unmeasured tributaries. When it rains, it floats. And when that shows up in the reservoir, we get 50% of that. And the other 50% goes to Mexico. So that's where our water comes from. And on the side, what we know from our historical accounting already and our archive data is what inflows belong to each country. We've done that math, figured it out. And that's what gets allocated to users. We do it with preliminary data on a weekly basis. We communicate frequently with TCQ on that. And then we also do monthly accounting with final data. Now, what's new is tracking exactly which water source that came from. So the way our accounting works is, here's a reach a river. Maybe the Rio Grande comes in. We have water coming in from upstream on the Rio Grande. And we say, okay, based on our analysis, the water exiting this reach is 60% United States, 40% Mexico. Just an example. But then that's it. We don't keep that fidelity of what percentage of that came from the Conchos, what percentage came from Alamito, right? And so then we move down to the next reach a river. We just know 60% United States, 40% Mexico, and we repeat that process. So in our accounting, the final number we have going in to the reservoir, we know the percentage along with each country, but what was the exact source? And this is what Adrian did. He did a new analysis that actually tracks the water by source. We regain that fidelity, and that's what we're estimating with this analysis we're going to go for. We're tracking those sources as they go down the river. You could probably imagine why that's important as we're entering these low storage periods, these low inflow periods. What's it look like? Well, here you go. We got 6 different plots on here. Data goes back to 1980. So on the x-axis, that's the time. And then we have on the y-axis, volume in thousands of acre feet. There are 6 plots, one for a different source. So on the upper left, we have the Rio Conchos. That's how much of the Rio Conchos that belongs to the United States is entering Homicide. So not Rio Conchos entering the Rio Grande, but actually reaching the reservoir after all the losses. In the middle, there's a tab covering it. I can't remember which this is one of the creeks. I think it's Alamito Creek. Here is Terlingua Creek. Down here we got Pecos and Devils, and this is that 50-50 water. One thing to point out is the y-axis, the vertical axis, is the same on these graphs, and we can compare them to each other for magnitude. And we can see Rio Conchos provides a lot more water than Alamito, which looks pretty flat, right? It's all on the same scale. We can compare that. Now, the other thing to point out is the variability. So here, Pecos and Devils, in the lower year in this first blue line, it's 443,000 acre feet, and here it's 1 million acre feet. There's a lot of variability from year to year. Just look at those peaks and valleys. And that's just something we want to point out to you. This basin is wild, right? It's some days they're good, some days are not so good. Now, the other thing on this graph I want to point out are the colors. Each color represents a decadal grouping. So blue is the 1981 to 1990, green is 91 to 2000, red is 2001 2010, and purple is 2011 2020. Why is that important? Well, because of the next graph. This is a little noisy. Let's group them by decade in an aggregate. It's just a little easier to make sense of the data that way. I'll walk you through it. The y-axis is the same. It's still volume, all 1 million acre feet. X-axis, these are still the decadal groupings. 81 to 90, 91 to 2000, and so on. We don't have 6 spots. We have 2 here. One is just the main stem inflows, and one is the Pecos level. So main stem would include Alamito Creek, Lingua Creek, Ponchos, they all flow down the main stem of the Rio Grande into the reservoir. And then we have what these down the Delbert and Pecos. This gray line represents all the inflows together. All right, the key takeaway here is the declining trend since 1980. It's steadily going down, right? Whether we're looking at Delbert and Pecos, which has a negative slope, but it's very slightly negative, or we're looking at what's coming down the main stem, which has a much steeper negative slope. For the sake of time, we'll just look at this little bit here in the lower left, which summarizes that last decade versus the 80s. And we get 4.6 million acre feet less into the reservoir in total flows now compared to the entire decade of the 80s. Okay. 1.5 million of that reduction is from the United States tributaries, Doubles, and Pecos. The rest of it comes from what's coming down the main stem, 3.1 million acre feet. Okay, this doesn't really tell us a whole lot new. This is what's cooler. Now we can break it down by source. This is what's new, that increased fidelity. Similar graph. We got 4 clusters, 4 groupings by decade, but a lot more in 2 bars now. So the blues are Terlingua and Alamito. I pointed them out earlier, how they look basically flatline. You can see here, they're teeny tiny. Yes, it's United States water. Yes, it's water, but it's not much compared to what we see coming on the other tributary. Orange is our share of the Rio Ponchos. And you can see a very distinct trend downward from what's coming in on the Ponchos. Yellow is the United States tributaries, Doubles and Pecos. And it's a similar slope as we saw in the last slide, because same data, slightly negative. But then that 50-50 water, that's that unmeasured water. This was a little eye-opening for me too, because I haven't really looked at graphs of 50-50 versus the name trips, and it's a good chunk of our water coming, but it has been steadily declining over time. How's it look for Mexico? So this gray line is the same gray line you saw on the last plot. So that's total U.S. inflows. Mexico is the line below it. That's all the inflows that belong to Mexico and their homicide. They're parallel. That indicates very similar reductions in absolute terms. It's both about 5 million acre feet reduction. But for them, because their overall volume is smaller, about 52% less for them. For us, it's about a 33% decline. Still a big number. Still a big number. So let's talk about Falcon. Let's move downstream. What flows into Falcon that belongs to the United States? Well, we get 1/3 off the Mexican tributaries that are named in the treaty, or more, from Minute 234, just like the Rio Ponchos. So you have Arroyo de las Vacas, the Rio San Diego, San Rodrigo, the Sonil, that's the middle Rio Grande tributaries, and then Rio Salado, which flows right here down into Falcon. Oh, sorry, that's not there. It's right here, down into Falcon. We also get Pinto Creek and San Felipe Creek. Those are all 100% United States waters. And then, just like in Amistad, we get 50% of what's unmeasured. One thing to note, anything that we release out of Amistad also shows up in Falcon. But Adrian removed those waters from this analysis. We are focusing on new water introduced to the system, because that water was already accounted for when it entered Amistad. Here's that same plot. Pinto Creek, San Felipe Creek, like the other creeks, Terlingua and Alamito, not a whole lot. There. Here's the middle tributaries from Mexico. That's the Rio San Diego, San Rodrigo, Arroyo de las Vacas. That's the middle tributaries. A lot of variability from year to year. Rio Salado, that's Hurricane Alex in 2010. Pretty big outlier. But even without that outlier, you're looking at 21 million acre feet here, sorry, 21,000 acre feet and 300 something there. So there's a lot of variability in one. Same thing, y-axes are the same scale, you can compare it across. Let's group it by decade. Same graph we saw for Amistad, but by source. Yellow is the middle tributaries from Mexico. Blue is the Rio Salado coming in Falcon. And then this is the 50-50 water. Thank you. And the story here is not as drastic as we saw in Amistad, but it's still there. Since the 80s, the data show less water coming in each day. Looking here, it's about 1.1 million acre feet less, whereas Amistad was 4.6. So in summary, we saw a big decline in flows in Amistad over this period, 33% decrease, breaks down annually 460,000 acre feet a year. That's what it breaks down to in loss. The 24% decrease for US trips, for Mexican trips, 51%. That's Mexican tributary flow that belongs to the United States. Unmeasured tributary flow, 38%. Falcon, there's a breakdown, ranges from 9 to 30%. That's the story we're seeing in the data. There's just less water entering the system in the last 40 years. There's less water entering the reservoirs. If you want to target the slide.
Yes, just go back to the previous slide. One of the things that I think is important to highlight is this is the decrease in hydrologically of water. Mexico's decline is made up with, could be made up with reservoir transfers, which is not reflected here. Okay, reservoir transfers don't flow into the river. Those are transferred ownership later. So that's not reflected in this analysis. What I have in the next slide, which I just realized how small it is, go to the next slide, is, let's go to the. Oh, me, that's me, okay. Oh, wow, this is really hard to. I just realized that. Okay, so what I did was, as part of my research, I also looked at the state water plan for 2022, and Jim Darling will be able to talk, I'm sure, circles around me on this. But one of the things that I wanted to highlight with this presentation is that particular plan highlighted that 90% of the water from the Rio Grande Basin is what the region depended on, right? 90% of their water is from the. So what I'm trying to show with this, or what I asked Delbert to try and show with this, is that the region is vulnerable because it's a diminishing supply, but also because of the variability, okay? The other thing that I wanted to show here is they do a projection of existing supply. Well, first of all, the population and the region's expected to grow. Let me hear it. Oh, there we go. Okay. Oh. If the region is expected to grow, double in population by 2060, they are assuming an consistent existing supply that the Rio Grande is going to be providing, about 900,000 acre feet per year. But the demands are 1.7 million acre feet per year. Now, 1.4 million of that is agriculture. So when there's less supply in the water and there's vulnerability, agriculture is what's hit, unfortunately, because of that, right? So right here, the deficit or the gap is about 900,000 acre feet. This is from the water plant. And of course, Jim, I'm sure you can explain, the demands are based on a really hot summer. So the demands are on the extreme side. And the supplies are also on the considered a firm supply, which is considered a drought year, right? Is that correct? Jim, I'm explaining it correctly. And so definitely, this information is really critical as the state water plan is being developed right now, because that is how the state government funds their projects, right? And the opportunities, one of the opportunities that have come out in the state water plan is not only conservation, but and also other water sources, especially for the cities, right? So these are the things we kind of wanted to share today. So I want to take a little bit, I think this is the last slide on this, but I wanted to take a little pause to see if there were any questions on the hydrology data. Remember, this is not a hydraulic analysis because it would look what was happening upstream of these gauging stations and forming an opinion as to what's happening, which we don't look at that. We just look at the raw data that we have. I wanted to see if there's any questions. Is there any questions in the chat? And if not, we'll give them a few minutes. Let me start with the audience. Any questions from the audience? Yes, Colin.
Is it, the unaccounted for water, is it safe to say or assume that a large portion of that is groundwater contribution, springs and?
So we're talking about homicide for sure. That is part of the equation. So we know around Johnson Ranch, there's spring flow coming in, right, upstream. And that is accounted for in that 50-51.
Okay.
But also is precipitation. So if there's less precipitation and increased temperature and more evapotranspiration, that's also affecting the area. And that study that was done by the Bureau of Reclamation specifically highlights the increase in temperature, the reduction in precipitation, and the increase in evapotranspiration as something that would affect the region. And the study was published in 2013 by the Bureau of Reclamation.
Good question.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I had a question. This is Dante Galeazzi from Texas Produce on the line virtually. Just kind of real quick, Delbert, in your collection and analysis of data, is it looking like the data from 2020 to 2024 is in line with the other data that you've collected, basically showing that we are continuing the downward trend as we have over the last 30, 40 years?
We haven't looked at that specifically, but I'm going to show you a graph that shows 5-year cycle deliveries up till now, including 2024. You'll see it's pretty low. So I don't want to give you a specific answer, but yeah, it looks like it's in line just because of the low rate of deliveries.
And let me see, Dante, when we can get that information folded in, because I think you hit on a good point, right? Is the trend continuing? And it's probably is, but let us verify that, okay? And I'll get out an email to the group just to let them know we can get that done. Okay?
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner, would we have access to this presentation?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So a couple of things is that we record, this is recorded. It'll be put up on our webpage, starting tomorrow. So everybody will have access to it. If anybody wants the actual physical presentation, we've sent it to Region M. And so Region M, I'm sure you'll probably post it on your website. It'll be there. And if not, you can write to PAO at IBWC.gov and we will get that to you. And also, if we have our QR codes on the tables, if you want to get our newsletters, if you want to get on our newsletters, we're no longer typing the illegible writing of everybody in this room. So no other questions? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
This is Jay Bragg with Texas Farm Bureau. So the study or the trend analysis that you guys have done is based just off of gauging stations and is independent of any kind of rainfall data or water use data. Is that correct?
I wouldn't say independent because rainfall passes through the gauges once it hits the main stems, right? But
Well,
it is
I'm
based
talking
just on gauge data.
right. So I mean, if you happen to have the same amount of rain, but you have less in your gauge station, that would
Right, we don't.
you can't know that. And again, if there's a lot more irrigation happening in places,
Right.
that wouldn't show up in your gauging data, so you don't know one way or the other. Correct?
You might be able to use the 50-50 waters.
No, but he's talking about, like, for instance, if there's more rain upstream of Pecos, we don't know if that's
Oh.
being used in that area.
Yeah, that's correct.
So we are just, you are correct. We are not looking at temperature. We're not looking at, it's not a hydrologic basin, a hydrology study where it's looking at the activities in the basin of demand upstream of the gauges. Is that helpful?
Yeah. Thank you. I was just wanted to make sure that was clarified.
Yes, thank you for asking that question.
Thanks for clarifying for me.
And any other questions? Okay. And again, you know, this data that I pulled from the Region M water plan is just on Texas Water Development Board's website. It's easily accessible. You just put in region summary of the 2021 Rio Grande Regional Water Plan. Okay. All right then. Okay, so let's go on to the next slides that are going on, that what's happening. So as you know, we've had, Mexico is very much in arrears in their water deliveries. They are in arrears about 839,000 acre feet. And we've got until October of 2025 for them to make up that difference. And it is what you have here on this x-axis is the years, on the y-axis is the volume. And if Mexico were to make their annual average delivery of 350,000 acre feet, that would be the red line, the red dashed line. And here what we have is why we've had so many issues. Going back to the 1992-97 cycle, Mexico's ability to meet their threshold of 1.75 million acre feet is a real challenge almost every single 5-year cycle, with the exception of the 2007-2010 cycle when Hurricane Alex hit, right? So and these are the other cycles. This one's the 2020 cycle. We're at the, this is probably one of the better cycles, except at the end, they had, some debt from the cycle before, but they made it up at the end. This was the 2015, where it ends in 2015. This is the 2007. The 1997, which is when we started seeing problems, followed by the 2000 cycle that ended in 2000. This is where we're at now in the black. So it's been the lowest level of deliveries that Mexico has delivered. And that is one of the things that we've highlighted to Mexico, both myself, Ambassador Salazar, as well as Secretary Blinken. And then, of course, our reservoir levels hit a record low on June 19th. I ask every week, Frank, did it rain this week? Please tell me it rained. Please tell me at least sprinkled, because you know what? That helps every time it's not hot, right? And so I have it on my phone. I check on a regular basis just to see what the region is doing. Hurricane, was it Beryl, the one that we were hoping was gonna go and park itself on Falcon, did not do that, right? And we did get we have gotten a little bit of a blip, and right now we are looking at doing the projections of like we did last year, or earlier this year, where we looked at projecting out if we had the same temperature pattern. We were looking at hitting, power pool by August of this year. What is power pool? Power pool doesn't mean we don't get water, but power pool just means that we can no longer use the outlets that are used to deliver water to our hydroelectric power plants. And so at that point, we have to use our other outlets, which aren't really configured, have to be on a permanent basis, getting water out, as well as it could also have issues of volume that we could get out. But right now, as you can see, the US storage is about 600,000 acre feet, 666,000 acre feet. And then, of course, these are the reservoir levels in Mexico. The Ponchos has about 579,000 acre feet, and the middle tributaries have about 156,000 acre feet, which obviously we can't expect Mexico to deliver all of its water. Even if they did, they'd still be in arrears, right? And so yes, we are in a bit of a pickle right now, the region. And then this is a slide I like to use that highlights the challenges. These challenges go back to 1992, 97, when it was the first time Mexico did not meet its commitment of delivering water. They were about 1 million acre feet behind, and that carried over into another 5-year cycle. It took, almost getting to a third 5-year cycle for them to make up that difference. And here, we had Hurricane Alex here, and then in the 2010, 2015, again, they fell in arrears. That carried over to the 2015, 2020 cycle, and we're here. And that's why, for us, advancing this minute that we've been negotiating is really important to start changing the narrative and the tools Mexico has to meet its delivery obligations. So we have a history of doing minutes going back to 1996. And we really have it, a lot of the minutes is the tools that we use to build, to interpret our treaty and make agreements with Mexico. And they go back to minute 234, we refer to a lot today, modification to the allocation of water deliveries. That was the last time any major change was made in how water is delivered to the United States. And so that's why this minute is hard. It's hard. It's had, pushback from Tamaulipas and from Chihuahua, and that has garnered a lot of attention. So, I presented many times what's in the minute, but I'm really going to focus on what is being done, because one of the questions I get a lot is, what is the federal government doing? Well, I'm part of the federal government. I know you guys see me as one of your own. But there has been a lot of engagement from the Department of State. I know many people have gone up to visit. Dante took the group. Sunny Hinojosa took another group. Well, I don't know if he took them, but there was another group that went with him. And so there's been a lot of visits up to DC. And so Department of State high-level officials. I'm meeting with them because I think it's important that they understand the challenges that are going on. They don't hear it from just me, that they hear it from you as well. And so that has been really helpful in that they've been able to, they've met with members of Congress, the farmers, and to really learn about the impacts of water and the delivery shortfalls in the region. The Secretary of State on multiple occasions has raised to Foreign Secretary Batsenas two things, not just sign the minute, but deliver the water. Okay, we're not just about signing a minute. We think it'll make it easier for Mexico to meet their commitment, but delivering the water is really important and really critical, right? Otherwise, the minute is just paper, and if you don't want the paper, well, then at least deliver the water. Okay. The other thing is this Department of State has already sent 2 diplomatic notes to the Mexico's foreign ministry, again, calling for the signing of the agreement and delivery of water. And then Ambassador Salazar, there was actually this picture I was gonna put up there, but I looked really upset in that picture. I said, no, I don't think I'm gonna, because negotiations with Mexico are hard. And I do take it very personal. I've taken this very personal to get water delivered and the minute signed. And so U.S. Ambassador to Mexico has been very helpful. He looks for every opportunity to bring this up. And, I've been in multiple meetings where he's like, when? Give me a date, give me a date. Okay, and that's where we're at, right now. Okay, so as many of you know, especially more recently, we've had multiple meetings with Mexico on this. And right now, Mexico has agreed to give us a plan on how they're going to deliver water to the United States based on different scenarios. So if they get 80% rain, this is what we can expect. If they get, and I'm making up numbers, I didn't say 80 or 50, so whatever it is, right? To look at scenarios for us, and that's what we're waiting for from them right now. Okay. And so, versus plans, I've met with the National Water Commission to share plans for making water deliveries to the U.S. under wet or dry scenarios. And again, I would reinforce that in writing to them as well. And so that's where we're at on the update. I wish I had better news. I considered myself the water fairy for a while, and I feel like I've not done it yet, but I have not given up, and I continue to press. So let me ask to see if there's any questions on that. Oh, I will tell you one thing. I am a little bit more optimistic because after the election, there's definitely been more movement from Mexico on their domestic process, their domestic consultation process. There's also been engagement by the president-elect Claudia Sheinbaum on this as well. So, and then the other thing is that all of the visits from the border congressionals, Representative Monica de la Cruz, who's sent a letter, has asked for a meeting, Representative Vicente Gonzalez, who's also met with her, and all of the work that Senator Cornyn, de la Cruz, Cuellar, Gonzalez, forget them all. Yes, all of them has been really helpful in putting the pressure. And again, these other discussions, you guys, when you're having your discussions, again, with your communities, if there's opportunities to bring it up with the state, it's really important to continue the same narrative. Deliveries need to be made. All right, any questions?
Commissioner, I did have a question.
Yes,
I think the latest was for the minute to be signed, hopefully sometime in July.
yes.
Do you have a new más o menos now?
Oh my God, I'm afraid of giving dates anymore, right? Because I have failed you guys, right? So we were targeting July, right? And right now they have not given us an estimated date. As soon as we see an estimated date, I will make sure and share what that is. You will know when we sign the minute, because trust me, that press release will be said the moment I sign that minute, right? So definitely we will be allowing. I have really emphasized, and not that I'm giving them until this month, that we have about 60 days because the rainy season is going to end. Yeah. And I have that deadline in my mind very clear. Okay. And so I'm because I know come October, decisions need to be made. The rainy season is over and decisions need to be made for agriculture as well. So please know that I'm doing that. And again, anything you can do to continue advocating for yourselves is really important. The other thing is that I'm hoping this information will be helpful because Anthony, I'm gonna blame Anthony on this one, right? Because even though this is gonna help us short term, building drought resiliency is critical for the region. Okay. Okay, any other questions on this one? And the audience, Dante, anybody else?
Yeah, you spoke about the
Can
minute,
you identify yourself?
Jose Ceballos in Laredo.
Okay,
So you spoke about it, I guess the minute, which seems to be like the recourse and the enforceability. Can you expand to that? What would be the ultimate recourse to have Mexico, I guess, comply or develop a plan that's, I guess, to our acceptability?
right, so the treaty does not have any punitive measures included in the minutes, okay? And so right now, Mexico in theory can invoke the extraordinary drought clause and have the volume carry over to the next 5-year cycle. We are, so I went back and did some research on any protocol on what's extraordinary drought, when it's acceptable for the United States to say, okay, we agree, we can carry it over. There's no protocol on that. And so there's no protocol on that. I think it's really important for us to set the protocol that's acceptable to us, and that's what I'm working on right now. And the other thing that's helping us is the hydrology data that we're pulling together from the model to be able to look at what is the natural ice flow that's coming into the region. So we're working towards that so that we are able to advocate for ourselves saying, hey, this is how much water naturally came into your reservoirs. This is how much you stored, but this is how much you could be providing to the United States so that we don't have a situation like in year 2 of the water cycle, right? Where they got all this water and it was a missed opportunity where they could have delivered more water, okay? So unfortunately, we don't have any recourse, honestly. But the water diplomacy, pressure, and, you know, being good neighbors and showing good faith.
Some of the pressure, the threat, have to do with other agreements between Mexico and the United States. And, you know, and we're involved in trade issues and those kind of things, so we need to be careful of saying, we're gonna cut you off on this or that unless you deliver. That water is very, very hugely important. But a really good analysis instead of just threatening, something that may have another adverse.
Right. I'll tell you one thing, can you put up the individual so I can see their face? One of the things is that there's always unintended consequences with deliveries, with trying to barter from between. And I'll give you an example. I know to me it was brought up that, well, why don't we just stop delivering Colorado River water to them, right? That comes up frequently. It doesn't come up as much as before. And there's a couple of reasons why we can't do that. One, the water belongs to the 7 states, but let's say we were able to convince the 7 states to do that. And the 7 states are gonna say, beautiful, we get to keep the water, and Mexico says, we met our commitment. Yeah. And no water comes here. So there's always these unintended consequences that we want to avoid, right? But I think it's still really important that we definitely continue that dialogue. Dante, do you have your hand up? Just, no? Oh, yeah, go ahead, Dante. Oh, and I'll
I
get to you,
do.
sir.
No problem.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you so much, Commissioner. I had a question going back to where we're at with the current minute. We understand that the holdup is on Mexico's side in terms of next steps, and what we're hearing through back channels, it sounds like there is dispute between Chihuahua and Tamaulipas on the next step. Do you have any insights into what they're thinking about that you could share with us? Or what's going on?
Right. I have no insights whatsoever. You're the first one to share that with me.
Okay.
So no, but it makes sense to me, right? It does make sense to me. Hopefully that means that the Mexican federal government is negotiating with that. Okay,
Yeah.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dante.
My name is Eddie Brew. I'm from McAllen, Texas. Are you familiar with the
dams on the Mexican side that are closest to it? The Gomez Dam and the Cuchillo Dam?
Yes,
Okay, those right now are full,
Right.
about 90%,
right,
because of the first hurricane that came, hit them.
right.
And they actually, one of them, they had to open up all the water and it ended up in the ocean.
Right.
So, I don't understand the treaty real well. How come we cannot get water from those two dams?
Okay.
Do they not connect to Falcon?
Well, first of all, yeah, they do not connect to Falcon. They come below, Falcon, above Ansaldúa, so there's very limited amount of storage. It's also not, part of the treaty water. Okay, but in this and they've done it before, Mexico has provided that water to meet its treaty obligations. But there's been some controversy in the past, obviously, with regards to that, right? Because it cannot be stored. We are putting in the minute the ability for them to use some of that water as part of meeting their treaty obligation. And so what I have been told from farmers is that we would be interested until after we see what happens in October, after the rainy season. That's what I've been told. But again, the idea is if we're able to do that and Mexico wants to use that, TCQ and Georgina's here. I don't know. What I understand, Georgina, correct me if I'm wrong, is should that water be made available, your idea is to consult with the users to see who's interested in it. Is that correct? As a process?
Correct. You know, in the past, it's been treated as a very charge and, it's charged water. And that's the debate, right?
Right.
It is definitely part of the 50/50. So it's not part of the treaty, and so that kind of causes the issue.
Right, right. But now that we have less water available to us, there's gonna be no more, I mean, we're always trying to strive for a minimum of 350,000 acre feet on average, right? A minimum, thinking, well, maybe they'll go over the 1.75. I think those days are gone. Those days that where Mexico's gonna provide more than 1.75 million acre feet are gone. I think they're all, I mean, we're gonna be struggling to get the 1.75. But your question is, will we have access to that? It will be up to them to want to tell us.
They're at 90%.
Right,
So if one more rain hits them, they're gonna have to let it go
Right.
anyway.
right,
And they can't really keep them at 90 because the
Right.
structure starts.
right.
So
We
they
yes,
lower it anyway
right,
to about 70.
right. And we have asked Mexico if they will allow our users to use that water. The last rains, according to them, and I haven't analyzed the data, was that they were able to capture all their water. Okay. What we have asked Mexico is if they will allow us to take it, especially if it's gonna flow into the river. And they have told us, yes, we'll allow you to take it, but it will be charged against treaty water.
But we'll get it.
Well, yeah, but it will be charged against treaty water, yes.
Well,
Okay,
that's great. It takes so long from staff.
Right. right. Well, the advantage of that water is it's more wet water, right? It has less evaporation and when it's that clean, it's gonna come down with less salinity in it as well. Okay.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
real quick, Commissioner. I'd like to add to that point that the gentleman was making. I apologize that I didn't catch his name. You know, sir, there is.
Sir McAllen,
Sir McAllen, yeah. You know, the concern among agriculture is that we don't have the reservoir system here on the US side. So basically, when that water gets opened up, we're going to have to be sitting there with pumps and straws to pull that water out. And I mean, that, you know, I'm using broad strokes here. So please take that into consideration. Broad strokes with this next statement. It's basically going to be, you know, the equivalent of a multi-day free-for-all where people are going to pull as much water as they can and use it quickly. And you got to think about in those scenarios where those reservoirs are filled up, that's often a rain event that has also impacted South Texas. So you're talking about agricultural land that's usually already wet. So we're not going to be in a position to take that water and use it effectively quickly. And without storage, what are we doing? So we may be agreeing, and Commissioner, again, this is my position as TIPA, not saying this is IBWC or the US, just my position as TIPA. As agriculture, we are concerned that agreeing to that means that we'd be saying, yes, send us water that essentially agriculture couldn't use and the cities couldn't capture because they don't have the reservoir system. So that's our concern with grabbing water that is not currently part of the identified tributaries.
Right, and he's got a good point, but it would be, we would only take it if the United States could put it to beneficial use and if the users agree. Right? So if it were like October and there was no more water in the reservoirs and there wasn't raining and they had been storing it, it could be an opportunity. But to Dante's point, if they have to release it, I mean, it may be because it's raining there and it's raining. Did you have one more question?
So I measured from where the water comes in from Mexico back to Falcon, it's about 30 miles.
Uh-huh,
Is there any way to consider like a water transmission line?
right,
Or
right.
we can.
So obviously,
That delivery to Falcon.
Right.
Let them count the 8 miles.
right. And so I think that's my point with this type of analysis is that it's really, so there are things that can be done that could help with the variability, highs and lows. And that is obviously storage, right? Like Dante said, right? And so in the past, when the United States government has built infrastructure, it has been because communities like yourself are advocating for the IBWC to do that. Okay, so yes, if I were queen for a day and I could decide where all the funding went, yes, I would pick this region for that. But again, this is what your lobbyists that you guys hire do, right? Is advocate for your needs. Yes.
Question. So that this analysis that you're providing, it sounds like there needs to be more coordination happening at the state level, right? Figure out ways to make more investments for water storage and delivery to our region, right?
And so that is correct. And so a week ago or a few weeks ago, I did County Judge Eddie Trevino had a private meeting where I presented this because they're building their legislative agenda. And this was, and water's one of them, right? So, I presented this there. The county judge of Hidalgo has also invited me. And then on the 20th, I'm doing a similar event where Chairman Canales has invited me to go speak at an event in FAR on August 20th with regards to water, and we'll be presenting this as well. So again, making your state legislators aware of this is what's also going to rally investment and funding for the region. Any other comments or questions before we move on? Because we do other things besides delivery of water. And Joseph Tritz will be presenting to you today what we're doing in the region in terms of the flood protection. Now, we have a couple, before we move on to that. Okay. So one of the things when I first started at this agency, I said there are multiple things that I'm working on, right? Aside from things that are in my control, okay? Things that are in my control is staffing. Things that are in my control are budgets, and I can advocate for that. So we've really been lucky. When I started at this agency, the operations and maintenance project budget for the entire border was about $45 million. And the average construction budget between 2010 and 2021 was $32 million a year for the entire border. And we managed 2 international reservoirs, 2 international wastewater treatment plants, 500 miles of levees, the floodplain, 20,000 acre feet of floodplain, 800 boundary markers, 2 ports of entry. I think I got it all. For $31 million a year for maintenance, right? And to be fair to members of Congress at that time, we had like almost $200 million sitting in the bank that hadn't been obligated. So who's going to give you more money if you can't spend what you have, right? So one of the things we've been really working hard at is getting all of our funding contracted. And part of that is I'm doing what I call my 3 legacies. My 3 legacy studies. One is a manpower study. Okay, we just finished a manpower study. Is this out front or we're going to put it up front? Okay. I have a fact sheet that we put out front that will be put out front. Make sure all the board members get one first. And so that talks about the manpower study. I've already briefed members of Congress. I've briefed different committees and the administration on this. And so basically what we did was we determined that there was about 60 positions that this agency needed, and we have a staffing we have so we're only an agency of about 300, so that's like 20% more people, right? And so we've gotten a lot of support from all the members of Congress, and now we have the science to show these are the funding needs of the agency. We are doing a like kind of a 4-year plan on staffing. The other thing, when I got here, there was a vacancy rate of about 28%, almost 30%. We got that down to 9%. And so we're filling positions. You guys are you full? Are you all your positions? We have one more, but the offer has been made.
Yes.
And all the positions here in the region have done. The other thing that we're also doing, and again, I can update the group at the next meeting, is an asset management plan with the computerized maintenance system, so that I don't have to be sending emails anymore to Joe and tell me, send me your spreadsheet on what your needs are, right? And so now we're gonna have a computerized maintenance program. So we're working on that, and we've created an asset management department along with funding a consultant to inventory all of our components, right? So it's like when you have your car at 5,000 miles, you do this, at 10,000 miles, every one of our components should have that. We don't have that. We don't even have an inventory of our components. So we've started to do that. And we started with our wastewater treatment plants, our gauging stations, and our heavy equipment, okay? So that's the other thing, the asset management. And then the third item that we just put out to bid is, and we're gonna get procured this year, is a capital plan. When I got here, our capital plan were 3 years of things that did not work, right? Basically a list of things that did not work and what we were gonna fix, okay? That's not a capital plan. A capital plan goes 20 years out, right? So that's the other thing that we're working on putting together. And as soon as we have that, we will definitely share it with the group, okay? So our capital plan, and that's it. Yes, that's it. So I just want to update the group. Later on, we can do another presentation on the manpower study, but this is for you guys to take, okay?
Commissioner, when do
Yes.
you expect your capital improvement plan to be there?
So it's probably still another year out. Yeah, probably another year out, right? Right now, what we do know is the critical things that we have right now. Amistad Dam, Penstock 4 and 5, which are all in the procurement phases. Amistad Dam design is going to be assigned, we're getting proposals next week. Okay, so that's advancing. The other project that we have is the Brownsville levee. The area of Brownsville has the levee that's open. That's already been funded with this year's money. So definitely, right now we're selecting projects a little bit on the intuitive side, but we want to get an actual capital. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and the reason is because we're working, we're updating our comprehensive economic development strategies for the region for this year, for EPA.
Okay.
And I know that water issues is one of our threats here.
Yeah.
And so in my plan, I'm trying to put in, okay, in the next 5 years, we want to target this.
Okay.
So if I know yours, I can kind of see.
Okay, but the fact sheet, the overall fact sheet does have the critical elements that need funding, right? One of the things that we've done, and Joe will talk about that, is really funded a heavy equipment program, right? We had $66 million worth of heavy equipment needs. And now we've funded 30% of that. When before we had all of this, when I first visited the field office, it looked like a junkyard. It was bad. And now he's gonna show off the new toys up at Lucy. Okay. Are we ready for the next piece? This is the good news, what I call the good news.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joseph Tritz. I'm the Maintenance and Operations Supervisor here at the Lower Rio Grande Field Office. We're going to go over a quick overview of what we do here and our responsibilities for the agency. I'll also cover a couple little extra things in there, some of our other field offices and everything that they're located. So our agenda, of course, like I said, is going to cover the Lower Rio Grande Field Office, the Lower Rio Grande Flood Control Project, the operation and maintenance activities that we do here. Now, as an agency, we have covered everywhere from San Diego all the way down to the Gulf. And here we list, we got 258 principal monuments along the land boundaries between Mexico, Arizona, and California. We have 9 field offices across the southern border. Now, a couple of those field offices are broke down to smaller areas, but 9 overall general field offices. And so we also cover Texas, Rio Grande River forms the international boundary between the US and Mexico, but you all know. Now, this is what we have for personnel. This is the breakdown for our field office here and for Anza Lewis, which is also considered part of this field office. Actually, I think that number is actually wrong now. I have 29 employees, but with those employees covers the 2 managers. It covers myself, it covers my lead, 2 supply technicians, a civil engineer. Now, once we get past that, we get to the actual workers, the guys that actually do all the work. With that, I have only 4 equipment operators, 10 grade. I have 2, actually I have one vacancy, but I have 2 positions for the grade 8 equipment operators. 2 different levels, one's more skilled than the other. That's all that is. Also have 1 servicer that has to go out and fuel up everybody. So, I mean, that covers everything from Panitas, King Ranch, all the way down to the end of Brownsville. 1 gentleman does that. I have 5 tractor operators. In a little bit, I'll show you how much acreage my 5 tractor operators located here has to cover. Quite a bit of property. We have 1 maintenance mechanic. Usually he stays here. He works mainly here at the field office. And I also have 2 heavy equipment mechanics. I have 2 welders and I also have 3 maintenance workers. The maintenance workers are the ones that go out into the field. They're the ones that are putting up the traffic gates. They're the ones that are fixing all our gate well structures. They're the ones that weed eat around all our structures. And they're the ones that do all that type of work. And I have 2 laborers with that. Support personnel is personnel that we support here, but it's not part of our field office. They are actually in different departments throughout the headquarters. We have the regional security officer, Officer Martinez. We have the construction engineer, 1 realty chief, 1 specialist. We have a WAPA engineer that is stationed here, but most of his work is, of course, with Falcon. We have a civil engineer. We have 1 surveyor and 2 hydrologists. Hydrotechs here that we support. And then over at Anza Lewis and Redemall Dam, which Redemall is an unmanned dam for the most part, except for during a flood. We have 9 employees. You got the dam supervisor, which is Franklin Lazo. You have 2 locking dam mechanics, 1 of the tractor operators located there, and 5 dam operators. We actually moved the tractor operator from our field office to Anza Lewis because it made more sense to maintain that piece of equipment to go over in that area versus trying to bring him here, dispatch him here daily to go that direction. It made more sense to go ahead and move that FTE over there to that field office, or I shouldn't say that field office, but that location. So with that, we also have 2 international dams, the Anza Lewis and Redemall Dam. We have over 270 miles of US levee along the river and floodways. We have the floodway, which includes the Baker Weir, which we call the river levee, the main floodway, the north floodway, and the Arroyo Colorado. We have 30,000 acres of interior floodway with 64 miles of pilot channel. On the lower Rio Grande flood design criteria, most of y'all know we carry 250,000 CFS at the Rio Grande City, 105,000 CFS into the US floodway at Anza Lewis Dam. Where from there it's 21,000 CFS into the Arroyo Colorado and 84,000 CFS into the North Floodway. That's done right here at the divider site, right at 1015. And then we have 105,000 CFS and it goes into the Mexican floodway at Redemall Dam, which limits the flow to 20,000 CFS at Brownville, Matamoros area. Now, this is our map of our area of responsibility. Like I said, it goes Brownsville is here, King Ranch, Parliament, and Panitas. So that carries all our area that I am and my personnel is responsible for. So the current operations of the Lower Grand Field Office. We do levee roadway repairs and resurfacing and slopes. We try to do approximately 20 miles a year. That doesn't mean we get 20 miles of brand new caliche. That's 20 miles of repair and whatever new caliche we get. So in the levee and floodway mowing, we actually have, and you'll see in the later slide, we have over 12,000 acres. Our minimum without any overtime or anything like that, we usually can mow 8,500 of those acres. That's it. We cannot even complete 1 full cycle a year. So that's one of the issues that we're addressing. The manpower study helped with that, addressing that manpower shortage. The pilot channels and lateral drain desilting, is approximately 15,000 cubic yards a year. We have 2 long reaches and we have, we just received a brand new one right there yesterday, a regular, excavator to help with all the resilting. We do inspections and maintenance of irrigation and drainage structures, over 600 structures we have throughout our entire floodway. About approximately 100 of them are actually out of service, and then we have licensed structures also. So, but we also have maintenance of the 10 floodgates. And I'll show you shortly here, we'll talk about floodgates. And then we have our flood workshop and exercise that we have to do annually. Okay. Levee resurfacing and repair, maintenance of 270 miles of levee road. We try to resurface as much as we can. The river levee takes a lot of our time because there is a lot of traffic on the river levee. As most of you all know, anybody deals down in the river levee, between Border Patrol, the Army National Guard, and everybody else, we are constantly on the river levee trying to keep it going. So normally, DHS provides us caliche every year. This year, they've been a little short on funds due to fighting the ice in the water itself. So they had to move money around. So we try to lay and process new caliche whenever we get it. We fillings and repairs of any potholes, or levee slopes, due to erosion, and repair the ramps. Now we've gotten some new equipment this last year. This right here shows our grader before. Right here, you'll see it's a before and after of just resurfacing. This is one we actually received new caliche and we actually processed it in. And then here's what I was telling you, where we actually tried to mow our entire floodway is 12,000 acres. We've been lucky. We've been approved for overtime for the last several years. So that's how we meet that demand of mowing the 12,000 acres. So we've been quite lucky on that. And hopefully with the new manpower study and positions they're looking to give us in the future, we'll be able to actually do that without overtime. But of course, not only is it personnel, now I'm going to need equipment to go with that personnel. This last time we replaced our fleet, of 6 tractors with 7. So we actually purchased an extra tractor this round so we can utilize some of our other personnel into the tractor operating position as needed to try to help us. So that was one of the good things that happened this year. We replaced our entire tractor fleet. We've actually had to spend time, the ones on the right here, this is the older design, this is the newer design with the new heavier armament. Because out there, the trees get huge and our last batch of tractors got pretty beat up. So we've redesigned our armaments. Our welders in-house actually built that armament for our tractors. So that way, hopefully these things can last a little bit longer. And that right here shows you some of the areas that we mowed, the levees, the tractors out there. Sometimes when it's green and other times when it's not so green out there. This is, like I said, our new excavator we got right here. But we have one that has what's called a seam master. It is for removing trees. It's kind of like a forestry mulcher. If you don't know what it is, it's got a big old attachment where the actual bucket goes and it actually spins several thousand RPMs and it'll actually grind a tree down. We have one of those on an excavator and we also have 2 barcodes that have that in the front. It's like a front end loader with the same design. And we also have a Bobcat with that same attachment. That's just for removal of any trees and stuff like that. So right here is a picture of some of our desilting of the channels. Right here up top in the middle, you can see that's before, and this is the after effect after we get through desilting. Another one here is the lateral right here. Pictures of the channels and different areas throughout our floodway for them using the long reaches to desilt. Well, and most of the time we do pretty good at desilting, but we can't get everything. We will never be able to do the entire pilot channel in 1 year. That's not realistic. It'll take us probably closer to 10-year cycle to do the entire pilot channel system with all the laterals that are involved. We also do inspection and rehabilitation of structures. Every year we have to do the annual inspection. We have 523 structures within the IBWC floodway levees that are inspected annually. That's just the inspection. That's just them going out there, weeding around it, going in and looking at it. That's it. It takes literally 2 gentlemen almost the entire year just to do those inspections. Like I said, I only have 3 maintenance workers and 2 laborers. So 1 maintenance worker and 1 laborer is tied up pretty much all year round just to do those inspections. Then we also still have to do replacement of any sluice gates that we find any damage to. Weeding around structures, painting, stenciling, always got to keep them labeled, and installing identification poles. Identification poles is just a marker on the levee that lets them know where the structure is so they don't run into it. This does not include the repairs that we have to do. A lot of times we have to do repairs to our structures due to tampering from different entities. Sometimes it's a farmer. Sometimes it's, them coming from down south trying to smuggle stuff in through some of our structures. We've been known to go out there and 2-inch stainless steel stem cut right through so they can lift up the gate and run drugs through. So we have to go out and repair that. But this is a good example, some of the pictures of gate well structures that are out there that we have to repair and the tools that we use. Maintenance of the 10 floodgates. The floodgates are located FM 107. There's 1. Hopefully, not too long, we'll be losing one of that. FM 491 has 2 of them. Business 83 has 2. Jackson Road has 2. Jackson Road is notorious for their floodgates getting damaged. Jackson Road is a highly traveled, high-speed road. And we are actually in need of repairing Jackson Road currently. Benson Hall Road has 1. Hidalgo Port Venture has 1. Alamo Road has 1. Every one of these floodgates are serviced annually except for Jackson Road. Jackson Road, we have not been able to do it due to trying to get with TxDOT the permission to shut down Jackson Road. TxDOT does not like shutting down Jackson Road. It's a main artery. In the past, we were able to shut it down at nighttime and do the repairs. That caused overtime for TxDOT. Right now, TxDOT don't really want to spend that money on overtime. So we're trying to come up with a different way of doing it. To do it during the day, the last time we had to do it during the day, we actually had to hire a contractor. That costed us well over $200,000 for traffic control. At nighttime, we do a complete road shutdown. We get in there, we do our repairs. It takes approximately 8 nights. So we do one section every night for 8 nights and we're done and we're out. But it's for us, it's cost effective if they let us shut it down. For them, it's a hindrance for us to shut it down, and it does not cost effective for them. So, and those gates, like I said, 107, eventually they're looking at elevating the road, and that floodgate will go away, hopefully. And this is some of the equipment that we replaced for doing our floodgates. We have actually replaced this vacuum trailer with our new one right here, which is sitting out here. We actually reconditioned this one and gave it to Upper Rio Grande. So that way we say, because they only have 3 gates that they do. So they don't use it as much as we do, nor is it as often. So for them, that worked out perfect for us to recondition that one and give it to them. Saves the agency a little bit of money, and then we keep moving forward. Here is the actual floodgates, what they look like when they're open. You'll see that we utilize our Genie, which is our forklift right here. When we first started doing this, we actually had to hire out train service. That was very expensive. So we were actually able to save quite a bit of money by utilizing our forklift, which we learned that from flood breaks. We had to have some work done. They came out and that's what they utilized. So we learned a lot from them when they were here. So now we do all repairs on our floodgates also. Last time we had to have flood breaks doing the repairs on, and it was on Jackson Road. That costed us almost $1 million just for the repairs. We've been able to do almost the exact same repairs in-house, saving quite a bit of money, for our agency, which helps out a lot. Now, this is our flood workshop and exercise that we do annually. This year, we didn't do it till June 25th. The reason why that is, we usually try to do it in May, but this year, a large group of us was down in San Diego helping with the flood cleaning up down there in San Diego. So when we do this, I like to try to have as many of my staff here to, because it's an exercise. When you don't utilize it, you forget it. Plus, I've had quite a few new people come aboard and they needed to be part of this exercise so they know what's going on. When we do that, we go over, we train them again on sandbagging, levee liners, oil controls, gator pumps, and the stop log insertion and removal. Now, these are some of the pictures. Up here, you'll see this is where we do training with our pumps, utilizing different pumps, gator pump, orange pump, and so on. Here is at Panitas where we're installing the stop logs on the railroad tracks. Here is where we show them how to deploy the levee liner to protect the levee from erosion in case of wave action. This is boil control training, how to control a boil during a flood. All this is for flood control. This is our sandbagger with our machine, and then when we do our gauge board training and any indoor training, we have, that's indoors. Here is our equipment replacement program that the commissioner just mentioned. Right here shows for the fiscal year, us here, the agency's total and the percentage and how much we've spent. So far this year, it was $960,000 for our equipment this year. You know, that, 2022 was a big procurement of equipment. That was a large. That's not when we got the equipment, that's when we bought the equipment. Yeah, it's been known to take well over a year for us to get a piece of equipment after buying. You know, sometimes it just takes that long to get here. And then, latest news, QR codes, let's see what else. Any questions? There's my information if you need to get a hold of me. That's my office number. I think that's it. Yeah, pretty much it. Anybody got any questions? Any concerns, any comments?
I'm on the Angelo's trip board and with the RMA on getting that bypass and the control road between the bridges, and really appreciate you guys' help and
Yes, sir.
moving levees and all that. Really great cooperation and.
That's a big project out there.
Great job.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? No questions, no concerns, complaints? That's usually the big one right there. Nobody's got complaints?
What about online?
There's nobody highlighted. Sweet, that was nice and easy for me. All right, I like that. All right, right, I'm gonna hand it back to you, I guess, or we got another. Or is that it?
Yeah, that's,
So you had your preference on mowing, how many times a week you mow it? If you had enough people to do it, mowing
How many times I would mow it? I would try to do at least twice.
twice a year?
Yes, sir, because some of the areas that we have, we do try to hit it approximately 3 times, 2 to 3 times, depending. And that's usually wherever we got residents backed up on the actual levee itself. Yeah, because of the fact that we do understand when it rains, the grass grows, you get mosquitoes, you get snakes, and we understand that. So we do try to, but in the way we've done it, we tried different ways of breaking our tractors down to try to be more efficient. What we found out this last couple of years is we've actually got all our tractors separated to 6 different areas. We actually got one gentleman who mows just the river levee. We got one person who mows just the Arroyo Colorado, one person in the North Floodway, one person at King Ranch, and one person in the main floodway, then one at Onto Lewis. The reason why we went that route versus the way they used to do it was, which was in pairs, teams, all at one shot, is we found out that the more the same person mows the same area, the more they get to memorize it. It's kind of like mowing your yard. You know where all the traps are, you know what to look for, and everything like that. So it became efficient. The first year was a little slow, but this is our third or fourth year we've done it. We've gotten a lot more efficient with the same operators being able to mow the same area. Plus you get in and you get to know your landowners, you get to know all them, and you can get, if you need help from them, getting you into parking areas, anything like that, that helps. So that's one of the things that we've done to try to make it more efficient. And like I said, we've also increased our fleet this year with 1 extra tractor. Yeah. So.
You're mowing just on the American side, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, sir. Yeah. No, we don't do no mowing over the south side.
And are they doing it at all on their side?
Mowing? No, I can't. I don't know. Yeah,
I would think,
Yeah. I mean, the only place I've really seen them do any clearings over there in Brownsville on their side, but they're not doing it with no tractors. Those poor people, exactly. That's exactly the by hand, So, yeah. Anybody else? Any other questions? Yes.
How low do you mow?
Approximately 10 inches. It all just depends. Of course, the decks look like they're lower than that. The decks look like they're only about 5 or 6 inches, but by the time you actually was to cut it with the speed that they're traveling, you're probably getting more of about a 10-inch cut. If they're able to go super slow, take their time, it would be more about 5 to 6 inches.
I remember about 25 years ago, there were about 2,000 to 3,000 gates, private gates, system you were trying to get rid of all of them. How did that work out?
Well, a lot of the gates are gone, but actually too many are gone now. Now we're trying to put some of the gates back in because what we're having happen is too many people are crossing into areas that's not theirs. It's actually farmlands and they're getting into the farmers' properties. You know, they're throwing trash, everything else. So we're trying to get to where we actually are installing more traffic gates back in the system. Not quite that many, because I do know they had a lot, but we do want to put more traffic gates out there. The problem we have is, of course, manpower. The other problem we have is as fast as we can put up signs, poles, this and that, they're getting ripped out. So some of it's a vicious cycle. Yeah, especially we went through a couple years ago, we put several signs of government property, no trespassing. You go back out there and they're gone. I mean, they're that fast. We've actually had people go out and literally remove the entire gate system off the levees before. Yeah, so that has happened. So it's a vicious cycle. That it is. Any other questions? Comments? Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, with that, I guess we'll move on to one of the last items, which is, are there any public comments at this time? All right. I guess the only thing I would like to say is, I do appreciate IBWC's efforts on I want to call it a sting operation for some ATV activity that was scheduled. We appreciate y'all protecting not only y'all's infrastructure and property, but also others in the area. So I guess with that, we can just jump to any suggested future agenda items at this time. If the board had any they wanted to bring forward.
I would still like to see what the plan is for, it does have economic impact, the levy, you know, rehabbing the levy to get them certified, because mapping here in the Rio Grande Valley is not going to happen at all until that happens, according to FEMA. So
Right.
if we're going to move forward, we need to help y'all help us how we get past that and get you some money for the levy.
So one of the things that has, has come to my attention is the raising of the levies. There's still a lot of gaps we still need to close, and I know at one point we did a presentation on that. We can kind of, were you guys all here when we did that presentation on all the levy gaps,
Yeah.
right? But we cannot, the IBWC doesn't get the certification for it, right? It's the drainage districts that get the irrigation, that will get the certification. And so to do that, they have to do the drainage studies, right? And so not too long ago, Senator Morgan Lamantia asked me, she wanted to know what was happening with the FEMA certifications and the closure of the levee gaps. And I explained to her the same thing. And that's where I told her was that one of the ones in this area, or down in the Brownsville area, that needed to be closed so that FEMA certification could be obtained, was that piece of it, right? With the Brownsville piece, right? But other than that, I wouldn't even know who's responsible for those drainage studies. Is it the counties? I'm assuming it's the counties.
Yes, ma'am. There's been some discussion, at least down where we are, to entertain that. So a couple of engineering companies that have approached Cameron County, at least, with the idea of trying to get some of those studies in place and funding to it. I think it's really the county who, either collectively through one of the regions or potentially, someone who wants to champion it and then work probably a grant of some sort in order to do that. But that's probably the biggest thing that we're kind of working through right now, is just trying to find the champion who could collectively bring all those bodies together.
Right.
As opposed to just a single entity kind of trying to own it.
Right. And once we close at Brownsville, Cameron County is going to be ready for that FEMA certification.
So we've had some discussions, at least with them.
So yes, so it sounds like, I don't know, something Region M looks at.
Yeah, it's smaller than all of region.
Right, right.
And other governments, when we had the last floods, they've done major flood studies and studies. And one of the problems is there's two different governments, that Hidalgo County is one drainage district, Cameron County is multiple irrigation district. That's going way back here, but it's still like that. So to get them in our water, so it flows your way to Cameron County.
Right.
And so, yeah, getting that together from kind of a political issue is who's responsible.
Right.
We need leadership from the federal government. Money and leadership.
I do know that I've talked to the USIBWC with Hidalgo County on the drainage
Oh,
map.
that's right.
Because, we want to develop like a regional drainage system map. Water, like maps, regional maps. And one of the things I did talk to him about was a drainage study, so I would need to reach out to Cameron County as well. Because yeah, as a council of government, we could apply to see if there's funding for that. Of course, I won't do the study, we'll contract out, but it's something that I've heard 3 different people already talk about FEMA certification in the last 3 weeks.
You know, it's
So something,
something is brewing.
that's brewing.
Yes, for sure. I was really surprised that Senator Lamantia was very focused on that.
Well, she brought it up when I saw her in Corpus at our, in Kings. Yeah, she talked about that, but she was on our panel and I was like, so then for the last couple of weeks, I've had 3 different people say FEMA certification. I'm like, okay, what is?
Right.
What's going on? So I have to actually, I'll send you talk to you. So, okay, Commissioner, figure this out.
Okay. But from the topics of the board, is there anything anybody would like to see on the next board agenda?
Could we, do you know if, Commissioner David Fuentes has any updates on his reclamation project?
I haven't heard any recently, but we can,
Maybe check with him because,
They're supposed to give something on the 20th.
are they?
Okay.
Okay, because maybe they could be on the next one.
sure.
Because I think that project in itself is just, it's amazing. If y'all haven't heard about his reclamation project, maybe he can do an update on that.
Sure.
And if there's an update that you'd like us to do, is there anything, obviously I'll be here hopefully with news on delivery of water. But is there anything else that you, I mean, we did the flood, what else could it be?
Well, Commissioner, one of the things that keeps popping into my head, and I know we've talked about this on that study that you said, 2012 study.
Right.
By the regional authority talks about we need to be dependent.
Right.
For Mexico for water. So one of the things that I think we need to start focusing on is what can we do to increase our water supply and where is that gonna go?
Right.
Because I mean, we can drill, we can do whatever, but is it gonna be, who's gonna own it, who's gonna sell it? So at least from my perspective, from a regional planner, we all know that we can't be dependent, but we need to start identifying projects that would be feasible for this region to give us more water so we don't have to be dependent on it.
We did a study, regional water authority, chair, we did a study 2016 with Black and Beach. We spent a couple $100,000 on the groundwater system. Cameron County, the only a third of the Cameron County was involved because of lack of ground. Gulf Coast side, but all the plannings there, the distribution system there and everything else, we sent it to all the cities and, because it's a regional plan, no action happened. But that plan's still valid, I mean, it didn't change.
Well, now I'm there, so good luck.
Yeah.
Hold on. Yeah.
And we keep, one of the issues, like, I'm glad Texas Water Development was here, we're doing a lot of purple water plan, and now we've been told that, on water reuse, there's a return flow obligation to the river. And so we're trying to figure out why it's a Rio Grande River versus the Rio Grande, Oasis Rio Grande Basin are 2 different river basins, why there's return flow when, at any rate. And so some of these conversion, these water plants, sewage treatment plants are running into some levee problems at the state level. And it's not local. It's up with these.
I guess not Mayor Narly, that's promoting the 2016 study.
From a municipality standpoint, I'm really around the directors. And we have a lot of discussions about water up and down the district everywhere. For once upon a time, the topic of surface water was the only topic of conversation. Groundwater is a very, very heavy topic these days. Everybody, many semi-progressive and progressive water systems are looking at groundwater systems and going to a membrane plant versus a conventional plant. And obviously, the thing is money. I think the mayor said money is a big component of that, so I think they talked to us about it. So groundwater systems are being talked about very lively up and down the district, and that is really help.
I also wanted to say that I'm Marlene. Actually, I'm a consultant with energy consultant. I work in the energy sector. So one of the things that we're doing, I work with the NGOs across the valley right now, and we're tackling the IRA funding opportunities. And they're trying to do more community-based water and energy projects with the nexus. So I think it will be very critical long-term for the board to connect more on a community level and also look at community level scale water projects. I think, Colin, you're here with the Texas Water Foundation, and I think they're trying to also engage with the NGOs as well. So one group that I would suggest connecting with is called Squida. Maybe some of you have heard of them, but I know right now that there is some process of applying for a $20 million grant opportunity, trying to bring maybe a potential, again, community scale hydroponics project. One of the
Is that environmental justice?
Yes, the environmental. I can provide that.
Would you like for us to do a presentation on kind of the capital needs that we've identified in the area? Would that be of use? You know, we finished our 5-year inspection of the dams. We really focus on, because that would even help me kind of wrap my head, because I've got the whole border in my mind, and so it'd be nice, I think, for us to identify for you, you know, kind of the levee gaps that are going on, even from the flood control. What are the so, and then I know. Right, some of the agreement challenges we're having on the levee gap. The other thing, the Arroyo Colorado design that's gonna be going out, kind of get a feel for it so that you guys have a feel of what we funded for the region. And then what is still pending, just so that you're aware of the capital needs of this region. Would that be useful?
So
I think so.
at least to keep it fresh on everyone's
Right.
minds.
Right, and then we could see if we can ask the individual that you suggest on the reclamation, to come and speak on that.
Yeah, because Commissioner David, that's the focus of this project is to capture water. One, to prevent Wilson County from flooding,
Right,
but also to try to help with the water needs.
Right.
In the Delta area.
right.
So I think it's a great project. It's got, I think it was about all of it funded. So it's just a matter of getting completed the construction.
You know what would also be even helpful for me is to understand the needs of the irrigation districts from opportunities of infrastructure as well. What are the regions that still need lining? Yes, it sounds like a lot of money, but if we don't start asking, well, I can't because I'm the federal bank. Forget it. I couldn't say that. But I mean, it'd be nice for collectively for the region to kind of understand where the opportunities of infrastructure improvements are available. Is that something that you have collective knowledge on?
I think we can definitely put it together amongst, you know, all the irrigation districts. It's definitely your biggest bang for your buck on return for water investment. It doesn't produce new water, but when water comes, I mean, you're gonna get
You're
the,
saving.
yeah.
That's your baby.
There's 3,200 miles of irrigation canals in Hidalgo in Farming County. There's some map that you think, wow. You can go from here.
And how many of them are lined?
I don't know.
A big majority of them,
Of the 3,200?
they were lined, some of them were lined back in the 30s and 40s.
Okay, so now they're having leaking, I would imagine, right? I don't like.
And there's a Region M study that collected the information not too long ago. It's
Right.
Published, I think it was 2021.
2021.
It's pretty accurate.
We went through recently and looked at the dollar amount, it's about 534 million for just irrigation projects alone that were listed, that were associated just with that. And it must have meant us a couple million.
Right,
Couldn't remember exactly, but we did the math about 2-3 weeks ago. That,
okay,
using that as the resource, as for the information. I think the vast majority of that's still there. I think you know this, there's a lot of water smart opportunities that we take advantage of. Problem is the matching aspect of it.
Right.
We only get 50%. Typically, it's competitive. So, where Troy may bid 49%, I may be 50, I may lose out to his 49%. But that matching aspect of, because of the water code, prevents us from being able to charge any additional funds
Right.
outside of what water sales. If there's no water to sell, we can't match. That's a huge barrier for us. And then our only other aspect by which we could gather money, which is really just the intent of maintaining the existing system, is flat rate. If we were able to go back, the water code does allow us to actually use taxes, but that has to be voted upon by the larger, audience within our district, and having an election that would allow it to happen. Very few districts have that in place. But those are really our only three revenue streams that are out there for the matching. That's our biggest barrier, is the matching aspect of it. I've got myself, I just had two come down yesterday, 2 water smart projects from DOR approved.
Right.
Another 2 miles of irrigation.
I saw that. Congratulations.
Thank you. Now I gotta figure out how to match it.
But they do take in kind.
Yes, and that's the only way that we can execute it.
Right.
And that's how we'll do it. It's just a matter, and I have about another 16.5 miles of funding currently, but once again, and that's spread over 9 years. And really, if there's no consistency and expecting any kind of a revenue stream along in those timeframes, it grinds us to a halt. So even though there's revenue streams and availability for us to actually get those projects done, there's a need for them to be done. It's because of the limitations with the water code and the availability of water, it almost prevents us from being able to realistically take on large scale type of programs to get these accomplished.
Right, but if the Texas legislature were to come up with potential program where you could use their program as matching funds, that would probably.
Yes, but historically, once they see that we have funding from DOR, there's a reluctance to do a match. I don't have a whole lot of history with this. This is just some discussion with some of the other managers. There's a reluctance for there to be a match piece where we could get it to like a 90-10 or something.
And I had understood that now they're allowing a reduction in the 50%. Have you tested that out yet with them?
With respect to
For disadvantaged communities, yes. DOR is reducing that 50% match.
You don't qualify for a lot of these.
Because they do census tracts. And so when you go to the EDA census tracts for disadvantaged communities, even though overall, counties,
And who you serve?
yeah, it depends on where the irrigation district sits. If it's.
This county can apply for it.
Yeah.
See, but not the irrigation.
Right.
And we've tried to work to partner with because we provide water obviously to municipals. We try to partner with some of the cities. It's a difficult bridge to cross so that we can benefit mutually.
Right.
It's something we're trying. It's just difficult.
Well, I think that.
And so, as Congresswoman De La Cruz's office is here, right? They're the ones to ask for those changes for those programs, right?
Yeah, well, I believe the FIF project category 3 for the state will allow you to use that as a matching funds, right? I think it's category 3 funds through taxes, water development, but don't quote me on the actual category, but I know, I think it's capital projects.
I'd love to see because some of those do have PWS code.
Yeah, that's another challenge we run into is from the development board. We can get so far. They're like, hey, you're going to get it as a grant. Just give us the PWS number, public water supply. And we're like, hey, we deliver the raw water.
Yeah.
They don't realize because the Rio Grande Valley, as we know, is unique to the rest of the state that we're delivering the raw water to the city that's then subsequently taking it and treating it. The city's giving the PWS, but not us. So it's kind of a.
Well, and so again, in that meeting with, on August 20th there's like a whole group of state legislators that are gonna be there. I really recommend that you highlight these challenges.
We have individually, collectively, we've sat down individually with each of them because we have had face-to-face meetings with them. So it's something they're aware of.
Okay.
We've asked for legislation. Legislation is really what needs to happen in order for there to be a change.
Okay.
Some of it is awareness. So when TWB is writing, what are those requirements? BOR is coming in writing those requirements that they acknowledge and understand that water supply is not limited to municipal water providers. It's, there's a network that has to get them there.
There's a comment online. Somebody has their hand up.
There's a question online from Aaron Chastain. Aaron?
Hello, everybody. My name is Aaron Chastain. I'm with the Corps of Engineers in the Galveston district. I wish I was in the room. I don't know exactly who all's in there, who all I've talked to. I hear some familiar voices, but the chat there was from one of our technical leads for the project, Dr. Paul Hamilton, on the engineering side. And I just wanted to point out, well, thanks for allowing us to join in and sit down or listen in on kind of the projects and the needs. And we are doing a watershed assessment for the Lower Rio Grande Valley. We've been working on it for about a year, but we still have 3 years of work to still complete. And so I just wanted to throw it out there. Please reach out to us anytime. The goals of the project are doing a lot of what is being talked about here, coming up with some actual logistical project recommendations for water resource management and resiliency for this area. And so if there's any meetings you want us to come to or conversations you want us to be a part of, or if there's anybody on the call that wants to join some of our working groups to bring some of these needs and actual project recommendations to the table for the assessment. We have a strategic larger working group we'd be happy to invite you to. And then we have, smaller focus area working groups when it comes to flooding, water supply, ecosystem restoration, and even the economic development and some of the disadvantaged community conversations as well. Please reach out to myself. My email's in the chat. And I'd be happy to have one-on-ones with anybody. We've been talking a lot with IBWC, but I know, we may need to get some other people on the conversation as well. So if you think of the Army Corps of Engineers, you typically think of flood risk management, or navigation projects, or wetlands and mitigation. And this watershed assessment is a unique opportunity for the Corps and the local Lower Grande Valley, where we don't have to stay within those business lines. We can bring everybody to the table, talk about where they have funding, talk about who would be likely to implement a project and have match dollars, and put that into an assessment that would ideally help us leverage more money and resources to tackle those projects.
Thank you very much, Aaron. You may have just volunteered yourself for a presentation.
I would be happy to.
We could, Aaron, we'll go on ahead and I guess the group kind of thinking that it's a good presentation.
It's the first I've heard of it. I know.
Right.
Yeah, we actually kind of last week at our Regional Small Cities Coalition, he's great.
Okay, good.
Working with Aaron, so
Great.
I'll send you this information.
Awesome.
Or Commissioner, I can send it to you.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
But I guess put it on the agenda. The other thing is I can talk to the Bureau of Reclamation to also have a representative here at the next one again, so that we need to continue having them hear your challenges. Right, and what's happening and what we need to do to address that. And then we'll encourage our, because that'll help me when I have those conversations within the federal family venue. I will tell you one thing is that the Senate, when they marked up our budget, they gave IBWC grant making authority. Okay, on the Senate side. There's no money behind it, right? That would be like the next thing, but that could be another opportunity for us to be able to assist the area as well. Okay. Yes, that was huge. That came from the Senate side of the appropriations. Okay.
Okay. Any other, talked at length on that, but any other future agenda items?
We don't have that information available, not yet.
Thank you. When do you decide on that?
We'll have to get with the board. Usually it's 4 months from this.
From today, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Yeah,
Possible
so
manuals.
what I'll do is I'll just connect you, Aaron, with y'all.
Okay, perfect. I got his information here. I'll email it. Yeah.
So we'll have him and then we'll put together a presentation on the capital needs for the region.
Yep.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I guess that's it. Yeah, meeting adjourned. That's right.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Have a gavel there. That's good.
Please sign in if you haven't done so.
I should bring mine.